Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in and taking the time to sit with me and listen to some of my insights. Today I'm going to share some insights from the astrologer Alan Oken. He's one of my favorite astrologers. He's an Aries as well. So he's written the book, this particular book here, okay, Soul-Centered Astrology. And this is my esoteric Bible of astrology. It's a really, really great book if you really want to learn esoteric astrology. I've had this for many, 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 many years. I highly recommend it if you're interested in learning esoteric astrology. So today we're talking about Mars, transiting Mars. That's just ingressed into Gemini. And so what I'd like to offer are some perspectives on Mars, transiting Mars in the sign of Gemini, both from an exoteric and an esoteric perspective, and an evolutionary perspective as well, just to kind of give us a broader picture and understanding of what there is there for us to work with if we so choose to have that awareness and tune in to this frequency through these different platforms. So Mars is a very important planet in so many ways. You know, it's literally our vital force energy, quite apart from the sun, of course. It's our drives, our motivations, and our personal desires. And so when we incarnate into the physical body, there's this alignment. It's there, but you know, whether people are aware of it or not is another story. But there is an alignment with the higher self and what is often referred to as the lower self, and that's not to make a judgment on higher versus lower as in good or bad. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just simply got to do with the fact that when we incarnate into this 3D physical reality, we have, you know, all the five senses. We have these desires that are expressed in many different ways. And Mars is one of the vehicles that enables us to express those sorts of desires, which has a lot to do with our, you know, our sexual drives, our sexual energy, our motivations, our desires in general, our passions, what we seek to actualize and activate and integrate. And so, from an evolutionary perspective, we have Pluto as the soul, and then we have Mars as the vehicle of the personality, you could say. And so, in esoteric terms, we have the higher self and the lower self, where there's this relationship going on all the time. And how integrated that is depends on the individual, their journey, their insight, their level of consciousness, and their level of evolution. So Mars spends, you know, quite a few weeks in any given sign, and you know it has its retrograde periods as well, just like every other planet. But you know, it spends a little bit longer than, say, Venus, for instance. So you know, Mars cycles around the 12 zodiac signs in around about a 2 year cycle, right? So, you know, we saw Mars in Taurus. That was pretty weird, wasn't it? You know, the last couple of months, just the things that were going on in America, you know, relative to politics and things of that nature. I'm not really into politics per se, but, you know, I am aware of what's going on. So anyway, there was some very interesting expressions of Mars in Taurus, let's say. So moving forward with Mars in Gemini, first of all, a couple of things to consider. You know, what's the position of your natal Mars? Where is it located in your chart? What sign is it in? What aspects does it have? Another thing to consider, you know, are you an Aries or a Scorpio? Because if you are, then, you know, Mars is the ruler of those two signs. So Scorpio individuals and Aries individuals really need to, sorry, I'll just let this go by. Bit of action here today. Mars being the the primary ruler for those signs outside of Pluto, of course. Aries and Scorpio people really do need to pay close attention to the transit of Mars because it's your ruling planet, as is Pluto if you're a Scorpio. Um, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring up the chart and I'm just going to point to a couple of features relative to the aspects that Mars will be making basically over the next 6 weeks or so. So it ingressed into Gemini today or sometime yesterday. And it will be there until the 23rd of April. So we've got quite a few weeks of seeing Mars in Gemini. And I mean, one of the most basic and noticeable features of this is going to be the animation of people's voices. Okay. People's opinions, personal opinions, um, ideas, communication, intellectual conflicts, and so forth. At the end of the day, in esoteric astrology, Mars is considered to be a non-sacred planet, as it is termed in esoteric astrology. Again, that is not to be understood with the from a point of judgment, as in good or bad. It's got nothing to do with that. You need to understand the thinking behind esoteric astrology to really understand what that statement actually means. But to summarize it, it would basically point to the fact that when we incarnate into the physical uh, reality, 3D reality, and so forth. It's a non-sacred place, not from the point of view of Mother Earth and nature herself, because she's totally sacred, but relative to being born into this human body and having all the various desires that we do, which do propel us forward into, making certain decisions, taking certain actions, all the different choices we have, and so there's this constant push and pull with the highest will and the lower will. So Pluto is the highest will and Mars is the lower will, and so there's this kind of push pull and almost conflict and battle, if you like, with the physical desires and the spiritual desires. And so Mars, as I said before, acts as the vehicle to push us forward, propel us forward, to enable us to act. And we do have free choice and free will in terms of the actions we choose to take. Now, in esoteric astrology, it is also said that Mars corresponds to the solar plexus chakra. And so the solar plexus chakra corresponds to the human sort of desires and needs that we have, which include, a number of different things. And so that's why it can keep us in that lower kind of state, unless, of course, we choose to, as Alan Oken says in his write-up, which I'm going to read because I absolutely love what he's shared. He just shared this 2 days ago, and I found it, and it really inspired me to sit down and actually talk about Mars in Gemini. In fact, what I'll do is I'll just read some of his comments, and then I'll bring up the chart and we'll just unpack a few things further. So he's essentially talking about Mars as having it embodies qualities that are similar to that of an opposition when two planets are opposing each other. And so he says that in its energetic expression, wherever it lands in a chart, in whatever sign, meaning Mars, touching whichever planet, it creates a field of conflict. At the very least, it penetrates and follows for the expression of ego. And yes, some egos definitely penetrate into the environment with love. I'm so glad he said that. And he ends this later with Venus being the light and the love and light of all things, which is also wonderful. He says, like the Earth herself, Mars is considered, in esoteric terminology, a non-sacred planet. This means that its major effects are to condition the personality for greater awareness of the soul, and such conditioning is often brought about through the dynamics of conflict, tension, and pain. War is no fun. Its devastation creates havoc and requires an enormous amount of recuperation and rebuilding before any further advancement in life can be made. Those brothers and sisters, he says, who are attempting to walk the spiritual path are thus faced with the conflicts that are inherent in the transformation and transmutation of the personality, which that comment there is, you could say it essentially encapsulates um, the 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 wisdom, the teachings of esoteric astrology, because at the crux of everything, esoteric astrology is showing us and helping us understand the higher self, the lower self, and the integration between the two, and the conscious path, let's say, that people embark on in order to fuse the soul and the personality together, which is an extraordinary path and extremely difficult as well. Um, so I'll just go on a little bit more with what he was saying. Sorry, I've just lost where I was. Okay. Yes, so there is with certainty many tests and trials within these stages of personal development. It is for such individuals, including the writer, meaning he's referring to himself there, that a more soul centered astrology has been developed. The path is governed by the sign Scorpio and ruled esoterically by Mars and the fourth ray of harmony through conflict, thus, death and release, while still in incarnation, is so very connected to the development of consciousness. So, in esoteric astrology, Mars is the esoteric ruler of Scorpio. Okay. And in terms of the seven rays, each ray corresponds to 3 or 4 signs of the zodiac. So, ray number 4 that he mentions there, which is harmony through conflict, Scorpio belongs to that particular ray, ray number 4. And so, what he's illustrating there is that in our life journey, as we experience many deaths and many rebirths, and that's largely connected to Mars and Pluto, of course, Aries and Scorpio as well. And because Scorpio corresponds to ray number 4, we go through these processes of harmony and conflict, or harmony through conflict, as ray number 4 is termed. And we cannot really experience life without, in order to establish harmony, let's say, we have to go through these conflicting aspects within ourself, conflicting journeys, conflicting desires. There's lots of different elements within us when we are trying to integrate and trying to become more conscious and more aware, trying to align the soul with the personality so that our path and our choices lead us towards unison as opposed to conflict, awareness, consciousness as opposed to ignorance, and so forth, right? I'll just continue a little bit more of what he says here because I really love the rest of this as well. He says, why is sexuality the facet of our desire nature that it is so intimately linked with this sign and planet combination so much of an issue in life? Question mark. Why is there so much pressure placed upon sexual conduct, and even more so on the possibility of our sexual misconduct by church and state, family and friends? This is because sexuality is one of the primary fields of the activity of transmutation in human life. Its energy is the energy of Mars in Scorpio and the direction we give to it, and by extension to the whole of our desire nature, which is Mars. Desire nature, desires are Mars, period. That we come into contact either with our own death and destruction in terms of the personality, or our own rebirth in terms of the love of the soul. Either way, it is the personality which is on trial It is the personality which has to suffer, and it is the personality which reaps the rewards of a job well done by coming face to face with the indwelling light. It is Mars which brings us to this light, and thus the red one is not such a bad guy after all, he says. And just finally, Mars continues, Mars conditions us to release our attachment to the forms of our desires, and that is not an easy task. He says, just try to be on a diet, abstain from sex, regulate your urge for a new car, cease manipulating your boss for a raise or projecting your dreams, and so much more. And you will easily perceive the nature of the Mars, the battles of Mars. Mars is associated with the solar plexus chakra, which I was explaining before. He says those of us who are on the path are striving to utilize these 5 and our growing 6th sense to be extensions of the presence of the soul in our daily life. Thus, we are forced to die many little deaths during a single incarnation. Rather than deny ourselves a new car, our purpose in driving that car is to get us to where the soul wants its personality to go, which again is the basic premise of the teachings of esoteric astrology. It's integration of soul personality. In this way, we can find the middle path and harmonize our lives until the lesser desire nature is transformed through loving ourselves in a deeper way. And the battles of Mars can take place on more impersonal levels, through service to humanity, for example. It is in this way that Mars attracts his celestial partner in our lives, Venus, the real guiding light of humanity. Once Mars is successful coupled, he definitely calms down. I really love what he's written there. I just think it's just exquisite, so well explained, and he's just really summarized from an esoteric level what Mars essentially means for us. So just a couple of other things. This is taken from his work as well, but it's not in what he said in that write-up. This is just some further work, just some things to consider when you're looking at natal Mars in your chart, but you can apply these points when you're looking at transiting Mars as well. Okay, so there's 4 points here to consider. Where and how, this is point 1, where and how the desires of the flesh have to be transmuted into the desires of the soul. This is what Mars points us to. Where the battle between the higher self and the lower self is most likely to occur. Where the primary magnetic attachment of the personality, and especially that which relates to the emotional perspective of me and mine. Where the soul personality fusion is likely to occur once the fixed cross has been mounted. Where the soul personality, I already read that. And then he says, as to the timing of these events, transiting aspects of Pluto and Neptune to Mars are likely indications that the battle lines are being drawn and the objectification of the inherent tension of duality are about to take place. Now, that's really fascinating because transiting Mars is actually going to form a square to Neptune, okay, pretty soon. So this chart is drawn for today. Here we have Mars at 1 degrees of 39 minutes. So it's been in there for about a day or so. And I'll be doing a separate video for the new moon in Pisces that's coming up soon, in a few days' time. I'll address that new moon in a separate video. But there will be just this incredible stellium, taking place with Venus, the Sun, Neptune, and the Moon, all in Pisces. It's just such a, I mean, really at the spiritual and esoteric level, it's just such a profound frequency that speaks to many things, which again I'll explain in the next video. So here's Mars. At the moment, it's forming a trine to Pluto still. It's an out of sign trine, but it's still there. What else do we have? We have in this chart the Jupiter Mercury conjunction in Aquarius, which is a magical conjunction. It is a new phase conjunction. So with that, we need to keep in mind the birthing of ideas that we give birth to during this time, while Jupiter and Mercury are conjunct in the sign of Aquarius. We won't see the fruits to that that birthing, the birthing of those ideas, till down the track, right? Because it's a new phase conjunction. So when Mercury is going to move forward, and eventually it will come to oppose Jupiter, that'll be a real illumination time. But we'll talk about that at another time when it reaches that. But just know for now that Jupiter Mercury is, it's many things. It's left brain, right brain. Mercury left brain, Jupiter right brain. Sagittarius, Gemini, Sagittarius. So it's a very powerful integration of our left linear mind and our intuitive understanding and wisdom, and receiving information, tuning into wisdom, intuition, higher levels of understanding, and integrating it with our left linear brain, and giving birth to really well, first of all, it's in Aquarius, so it would have to correspond to some sort of futuristic type of ideas, moving us forward closer and closer in our path of individuation, because individuation corresponds to Uranus and to an extent Aquarius as well. Individuation just means waking up out of the conditioned consensus reality and waking up to your own authenticity. So that's a beautiful vibration of energy right there. That's actually been activated for quite a few days now. So moving on, Mars, I'm just going to animate the chart, and let's just watch what Mars does. Just one other thing, this Jupiter-Mercury conjunction is everything I just said, and it is also, Mercury is the dispositor of Mars, meaning it's the ruling planet of the sign that Mars is transiting in, over the next 6 weeks, because Mercury rules Gemini. It's also the ruler of the North Node, right? The North Node is the direction we're all heading into collectively. And of course, Jupiter is the ruler of the South Node. So there's some very powerful alignment there with the planets that rule the current transiting lunar nodes, North and South Node, have come in alignment together. That's a pretty powerful blessing and omen in a very positive way, actually, enabling us to just step forward into the future, because the future that we're stepping into at the moment is still so uncertain and so confusing in so many ways relative to what's being presented to us. And so there's still a lot of fear, I think. There's a lot of judgment, there's a lot of uncertainty, and there's a lot of deception and lies. There's no question about that. And, that has largely been transiting Neptune, that has been squaring the North and South Node, right? That's been a large problem with perceiving or trying to perceive what's real, what isn't, what's lies, what's not, what's truth, what isn't. And Neptune is the ultimate truth, but we have to be able to look through the through Neptune's vibration, and when Neptune's filter through our personality and our ego can create a lot of distortions and a lot of confusion and a lot of disillusionment. So it comes down to our own checking back in on ourselves, rather than constantly relying on outside sources to point to truth to us. We have to connect to the truth within ourselves. I was listening to Russell Brand talking to what's his name, Jordan Peterson, a clinical psychologist, and it was a very interesting conversation. And one of the points that Jordan Peterson made, which I thought was actually quite profound, is the context of that point of the conversation was pointing to the various problems that exist in society and systems and politics and things of that nature. And Jordan made the point that even in his own clinical sort of practice with his clients and so forth, like a client might come to me, for instance, who is experiencing severe distress and anxiety and whatever else it may be in their life, and it has something to do with perhaps the identity they have, the communities they are connected to, things of that nature. And so the person might come to me and see all these problems that are going on out there in the world, and they're there, we're not denying that. But as a therapist, one very powerful way to work with a person is to help them understand how they can actually become more integrated and heal actually themselves, as opposed to trying to fix what's going on out there and correct or heal what's going on out there. Because this is the point that Jordan Peterson was making, we can't really transform a society or a community or a political arena or system until we actually address what's going on right here with our own self. So, and I've always said this throughout my videos, it always comes back to ourself. We want to see a change out there, but how willing are we to change ourselves? Self-improvement, Virgo, 6th house, it always comes back to that. So yeah, I don't know how that came in, but it just did. Now, getting back to this chart, that's right, I wanted to animate. So let's just step forward and watch the journey of Mars, because what's going to happen is, as it progresses forward, so yeah, sextile to Chiron on this particular day, 19th of March. That's a very nice aspect. Mars sextile Chiron. Sextiles are usually opportunities. The opportunity here is speaking to the nature of our personal desires, the dialogue perhaps that we're having, whether that's with others or whether that's with our own self. And of course, Chiron is about healing our own personal identity in Aries. So that's just a nice opportunity for some healing work, to take action towards certain things that you are engaging in relative to your conversations, your communications, what you're thinking about, what you are speaking. We the power of speech is to not be underestimated. So what we say and what we think contributes so much to the perception of our reality, what we manifest and what we experience. It really, really does. And this goes back into much deeper levels of the unconscious content within us. There's so much going on when we go to sleep, for instance. I've talked about this before many times. There's a lot of information swirling around in a sort of dialogue that we have. Think about it when you go and have a shower. I've used this example before. Observe this yourself next time you go and have a shower. Try and stay alert and aware and watch what happens to your mind. When you're in the shower, and if you're alone in the shower, you've got no one else to talk to, just observe how many thoughts flush through your mind just in the 10, 15-minute or 5-minute shower that you have, whatever it is. That's a really powerful thing to observe, to show you how many thoughts come flooding through. And I guess the point to that is, with all the thoughts that do come through, what are we paying attention to? What do we actually believe? And what are we feeding back into ourselves and accepting as though it is a truth? It's a very powerful thing, the mind. There's no question about that. Anyway, as we move forward, Mars is going to conjunct the North Node as well. That's a really nice conjunction. North Node is always speaking to our future, and it also speaks to connections and associations, alliances that we make with people. And Mars in this transit through Gemini, again, it depends which level you're looking at it from, but in very simple, basic terms, it is energizing our speech, energizing our mind. So we need to be careful. We need to be careful with our words, with what we are saying to people. Mars is incredibly impulsive. It's incredibly intense. It easily loves conflict. It's just the nature of Mars, and it corresponds to our own personal desires. So in Gemini, there's going to be some heated conversations that come up. You'll see that on the collective platform, if you like, in various ways. You'll observe this over the next few weeks. But let's just bring it back to ourselves and think about, okay, this is a great time to be energized relative to my mind, my learning, my studying, my thinking, my communications, and so forth. But let me bring some awareness into that and think about what I'm saying rather than just shoot it out, like shooting arrows. Because Mars in Gemini can be very, very hurtful with its words. It can be very angry words, So we just need to be aware of that. We need to think about how we are using this in a way that can help us become more integrated with the soul, right? Again, the Mars North Node can be aligning or, connecting with certain people that will foster or energize something about your path moving forward. We can look at it like this. It may also be that the Mars in Gemini might empower certain people to have a voice in certain things that they need to speak up on. Not everyone has the confidence to express themselves and to speak up when they need to. So from that perspective, it can be a really positive experience as well. We just always need to bring in awareness into what we say and what we do relative to, the people in our lives, right? So as we progress forward, there's actually around about here, there's a nice trine from Mars to Saturn. That's a very nice aspect. That'll be active for about a day or so. Trines are always timing. They are energy that flows, that unites and works well together. It's element to element. Trines are always element to element. So air, Mars in Gemini, Saturn in Aquarius, two air signs, right? So there's some nice interaction and flow there between Mars and Saturn, which is your personal desires, motivations, action with your conscious structure, reality, discipline, order, things you are trying to ground and establish, right? So there's some very nice flow there going on, which could indicate a very good timing for you to put certain things into place that require discipline and require your motivation, Mars, right? And then moving forward even further, let's just say, is Mars going to get, yes, it is. Mars forms a trine to Jupiter. That's fantastic, all right? That's a fantastic aspect, that one. That basically is bountiful energy. That's, that's the person who can accomplish a lot. You can run a marathon. It's boundless energy, basically. It's very, very powerful, and it is a trine. So again, that is showing us that there's a good sense of timing here with your goals, desires, things you want to act on, and how you might actually experience a stroke of luck. A stroke of luck is just actually good timing, really. And Jupiter, of course, is a benefic, so it brings about beneficial situations into our life. And certainly in Aquarius, Jupiter is wonderful in Aquarius. It's very happy in that sign. So there's a beautiful alignment there with Mars and Jupiter, expanding on your goals. Okay. Moving forward again. Sorry, I've gone a bit too far. I want to bring it back to there. Mars square Neptune. Now, this is a big one, okay, because in esoteric astrology, ray number 6, the two planetary rulers for ray number 6 are Mars and Neptune. And this is a huge frequency, especially if we are on the path in our own personal journey of awakening, aligning the soul and the personality, and being able to be a vehicle and expression, the ability to bring ourselves forward for something much higher, Neptune. Now, at worst, Mars Neptune, ray number 6, would speak to fanatical religious groups or individuals that use that lens to justify certain actions that are harmful. Okay, if I can just put it like that, I'm sure you will understand what I'm really saying there. And so ray number 6 is actually a very challenging ray, especially when the soul and personality are not consciously aligned. It can be the ultimate sacrifice for the absolute worst actions, right? But at a higher level for our own spiritual development and evolution, it can be using our own personal desires in a way that's going to be better for the world, for humanity, for our own spiritual awakening, as opposed to just our own personal selfish desires, which is Mars at the lowest level. So we have an opportunity here to work with Neptune, the ultimate source of love and truth. So that's up to us how we work with that energy. But that's going to be a very interesting aspect to observe on a collective level. I would think there's going to be some pretty difficult scenarios that perhaps might be heightened at that time. Okay. Just seeing if there was anything else I noted there. Okay, that's pretty much it. So I think I've given some quite a few points here for you guys to consider from the esoteric, from the traditional, and of course from the evolutionary. It's simply that Mars facilitates the soul's desires, okay, which is the higher self. Mars is the facilitator. He's the driver. Well, actually, Pluto is the driver, as in the ultimate, and then Mars kind of takes over on that physical level. So he's driving the car on the streets, but the driving force behind that is Pluto. And when we have some consciousness and a sense of alignment with that, then our actions, Mars, can be more holistic and intended for good for all and for ourselves, of course, as well. So there's various ways of looking at these energies, and those are the ways that I'm looking at it. And also, Alan Oken said that with those 4 points that I read out before, he says the timing of these events, as in when Mars is activated, whether it's your own Mars or whether it's transiting Mars, when it's activated by Neptune and Pluto, he said that the battle lines are being drawn and the objectification of the inherent tension of duality are about to take place. Think about that relative to transiting Mars and transiting Neptune being square, right? That can likely be a very difficult transit for the world collectively. Fortunately, it's only going to be in play for about a day or so, okay? But that day is going to be quite significant, I think. And so we're looking at around about 8th, 9th, 10th of April, those days there, right? But it's exact around about here, okay, on the 9th of April, which is my father's birthday. My beautiful heart and soul, I'll always honor him on every platform, just like I am right now. Okay, so I think that's it. Yep, let me just see. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there. I hope what I've shared with you has inspired you in some kind of way, or just given you something further to explore, reflect and think about and work with. And I'll see you guys for the new moon in Pisces. I'm really excited about talking about that. And also, just finally, I mentioned a few of you have seen it on different social platforms that I will be sitting with the wonderful Ariel Gutman, the author of Venus Star Rising, talking about the upcoming Venus in Aries evening star, which takes place on the 25th, 26th of March. We are sitting together actually. Well, it will be the 26th for me and it will be the 25th for Ariel. And it's just a magical, it's a, how can I put it? It's something that I've really wanted to do for some time with her. I have incredible respect and admiration for her as a human being, as a soul, and as an astrologer. I have learned a lot I did her training course, the Venus Star training program. Obviously, I've got her book. I've learned a great deal through her work. She's a true pioneer in these times for astrological work relative to the work that she has brought forward. So I'm really excited about sharing space with her and having her gift us with her wisdom and knowledge in a conversation that will be filmed and uploaded on this channel. So looking forward to that as well. And I know a lot of you guys are too. So thanks for sharing your appreciation, even though it's still yet to come. Okay, see you guys soon. Much love and bye for now.